Welcome to another episode of the Digital Native Podcast. My name's Ryan Anderson. My guest today has founded multiple companies. He's worked at large companies like Amazon and Intel. He's been a CTO at large organizations like Cambia and Alignment Health. And most recently, he's the CEO of Skypoint Cloud. Tisson Mathew. Tisson, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Ryan.
So getting started, would love to hear a little bit about your background. I think what's interesting about your background is you've founded multiple companies, you've worked at startups, you've worked at really large organizations in leadership positions. But tell me more about your background, how you got into technology.
Absolutely. So I'm from Kerala, India, the southern part of India. I was actually born in New Delhi area. My parents were actually moved there. My dad was in the Air Force. So when I was a little kid, I moved back home, so then I was that's until high school. Then I went to college in a place called Mangalore. Then I came to Portland for my master's program at OHSU. So my background in technology is went to a computer science school, did a graduate degree, so ended up at Intel. So that is kind of a natural path for someone in Oregon, going to school here. And Intel is one of the companies you admire the most. And I worked at Intel Research for a couple of years. So that was my starting point. Yeah.
And then from Intel, I mean, you go to a company like that. You moved around to a few companies. How do you go from there to being a CTO to being a founder of a company?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think while I was at Intel, I kind of reached a point where I wanted to do something of my own. I really didn't know where to start. So I started attending events from this organization called Oregon Entrepreneur Network. It's called OEN. So I was just kind of listening into pitches by entrepreneurs, what they're actually working on. So I started forming some networks with people from OEN. And I started getting a handle on how I should, go about starting a new entity, a new organization. So kind of toured around with a couple of new ideas and finally ended up doing an e-commerce software platform company. And it was a rough ride. So because right after our company started getting traction, the economic recession happened in 2008, 2009. So it was like almost 12 years ago. And it was a really rough time. So we had to kind of struggle through it and build our customer base. So, but what I learned from is even if you start with a good idea back then, we never involved that company to a true SaaS company. So I exited that company in 2011. It was great, organizationally, and we were able to grow a business to over 100 people, had hundreds of customers, all that. It's all good things, but you still have a lot of runway to grow. So you still have like a regret. It's like, okay, I should have done this, or I should have done that. But it's a great learning to leave a very stable job and to take some risk. My dad told me, make sure you have good relationship with Intel. If they want to hire you back, at least you get a job. And I almost went broke. I literally was living for with no money at all, sitting in my apartment, trying to build this thing, try to save money without a paycheck. It's just really hard. And sometimes you think you should just quit and go back to your regular day job, right? So it is sometimes really hard. Other times it is like looking back, it is like I wouldn't have done anything different, right? It doesn't matter how the struggle is. Like going through this rough path is it's always the right path to go. The reason is if you're good, these big companies are always there to hire you, guaranteed. If you're not good, either a startup or a big company won't help you, right? So you be good first. And you have the technical expertise, and you should be able to build your own products and services. You should be innovative. If you're a smart person and if you're hardworking, you'll always have the opportunity. So you just need to figure out what do you want to put that risk onto, where you get the highest reward. But so that's what I did. Yeah.
No, I love that. Thanks for sharing. And I think that's great advice. Is really taking risk, doing it earlier in your career. Yeah. While you can afford to.
That's right.
And I think it's interesting too. You spoke to the challenges of being a founder and some of the difficulty. I was just talking to Rick Tarosi, and he was telling me, there's all this glamour about being a startup founder and starting a company, and that's not the entire reality. I mean, you're missing a lot that's, you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. You're missing a lot of what goes into being a founder, all the hard work, all the challenges.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So take me from there. I mean, you're with that. I mean, how I guess, what was the evolution like in starting to work for larger companies? Did you go to Amazon from there?
Yeah, so I right after I exited my first company, so one of our customers actually was in close contact with me, and he kind of flew out to Portland, kind of figured out a way for us to do the 2.0 of that company. So he did so I had started the next company right after that. So I didn't have any revenues, didn't have any customers, just have a fairly decent enough idea to kind of get off. So he came in and kind of said, "Hey, we'll acquire your so-called company." I was like, "It doesn't exist really. He has no customers. I have a bunch of servers." So that's all I have. I haven't written any code yet. I was like, "Oh, that's fine. You can just bring this in. I'll give you a check." And the guy was trying to hand me a check. And it's like, "Join me." That time, the company was doing 160 million revenue, and said, "We want to make it a $1 billion company. So do you want to do your startup thing, or do you want to join as a next chapter of the new thing I'm working on?" And I was like, "I like it both. I like what I'm doing. So I hesitated a lot. Finally, he convinced me to go there. I was a pharmaceutical marketing company, and I was there for 2.5 years. And we took that company from 160 million to about 500 million revenue and sold it. So it's a great run. Hardworking, learned a lot. That's why my first start in the healthcare industry. So right when that company exited, I had a friend of mine in Amazon kind of reached out to me and said, "Hey, Tisson, you went, looking at Amazon." I was like, "Why?" I think I interviewed there when I was with Intel back then, and so I interviewed at Amazon. One of the toughest interviews to go through. So
I heard it's the only tougher one out there is Google.
Actually I did Google too. So I know both. I had the Hangouts interviews. But so both companies are great. So it can go wrong either way. If you worked at Amazon, you can work at Google too. If you work at Google, you can work at Amazon. So I think I chose Amazon primarily because of closeness to Portland, being in Seattle. And the team was super early. It's called Prime now, and we had like 40 people in there. And the Google opportunity was slightly different. Google Maps team, more mature, definitely had room to grow. So different challenges in different teams. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was prior to Google having 200 plus people in Portland.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even know actually. Yeah.
I didn't either till I started working in this role.
Yeah.
But so take me from, I guess, being a startup founder, working in these really nimble, quick moving companies, to taking your career to more large organizations.
Yeah.
Take me through that story. I mean, what was that experience like?
Huge learning curve. I think I made several mistakes looking back. So when you're in a startup or you're coming from Amazon or a Google, your style of working, your methods, your interactions, you usually have large teams and manage large teams in general. It's not the number of people, it's the type and style. In Amazon, for example, my team rapidly grew. Over a year and a half, we actually quadrupled in size. A lot of talent coming from all over the place. Extremely hungry, aggressive. They're all very new to the company. They had to learn a lot. And when it comes to larger organizations, which have been operating for a long time, they're looking for transformation, but you had to space it in a way that it works with the culture and style. So making disruptive changes is much harder. So the digital transformation in enterprises, I would say, is a different type of challenge to an internet-born company like Amazon. So to build products in a company like that, which already has, think of it this way, Google and Amazon are factories. And these factories can output a lot of different products, software products. right? So you go into Google Cloud Console or an AWS console, you can pop up a new service there because the framework is already there. So if you go into a traditional company and if you're bringing in the product thinking, or if you want to build solutions, you have to build that factory first. So it's just very difficult for having that mindset, culture, all that framework to be in place first before you start launching off trying to do new things. So it's a different type of challenge. And I would say if someone is coming from a digital native companies or internet companies to a traditional company, which are prime for change and digital transformation, I think take simple steps first, then big transformative changes, because there could be pushbacks, and because you might go forward one step and go backwards like 4 or 5, and then you have to kind of push through it. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good learning. It's a great learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to dig into that a little bit later. I think innovation and just change in general is challenging and can be hard.
Yeah.
So what's the story with? I mean, you and I have been friends for a couple years now. We met in the early days of Skypoint Cloud.
Yeah.
What's the story? How did the company start? And tell me a bit more about what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So after Cambia Health, I worked at a company called Alignment Healthcare. We are a senior focused health solutions and tech-enabled company. So after Alignment, I was kind of thinking of my next chapter. I always had a look back into what I did before my first company, and I had a unrealized, opportunity. I felt one is that I never took that company to be a true enterprise SaaS company. So we had that opportunity. We had a good competitor called Shopify, and look at their stock right now. Actually, we were bigger than Shopify when actually we were in the same market. So, but they went in a different direction. I was more of an enterprise software that will sell into a client, and so the client downloads it, installs it, versus a web-based self-service product, right? So we just never had that framework in mind. Our engineers were pushing toward it, but didn't have the opportunity to execute on it. Right. So right after Alignment, I saw the enterprise software market. It's a SaaS delivery model. If you can put together the framework of, if you think about Google Cloud, you can pop up a new service in Google Cloud so efficiently and easily because you have the framework, right? So you have the login, you have the telemetry, you have all the background infrastructure, and then it's easier to put out a new product. So my thinking was like, okay, if I can create a true enterprise SaaS solutions framework, pick one of the cloud providers, and then if I can launch the first product at it, like for example, Amazon started with Amazon Books, with book selling. It's a good category they started with. And then the eventual goal is to be an online commerce platform for everything. Then AWS formed from there and all that. So looking at that background infrastructure, so I was like, okay, I need to build this enterprise software. I think B2B software is taking off, and software is eating the world, and actually SaaS is eating the world. And so what is the right way to get started? So I just didn't have what to do in it. So I have the factory idea. So I know there is a factory I need to build, but I don't know what product I should build out of it, right? So I've been kind of hunting around, like, what should I do in terms of the factory? So I kind of framed up what I should do in terms of the factory, what the product first should start. So I kind of evolved that through meeting friends and others. Like, okay, I ran into this, okay, customer data challenge has been really huge. It has been there when I was at Amazon. I've seen it in multiple companies, and it's an unsolved problem. So this could be the first product that will launch out of our factory. So I kind of.
And what do you mean? Can you expand on customer data problem?
Yeah. So one challenge that most companies have is, so companies' data, customer data gets scattered around multiple systems, like a CRM system, your website, your survey system, your email marketing platform. And the customer data is scattered all over the place. And the identity of the customer is also getting replicated. For example, my name, Tisson Mathew, would be T Mathew in one system. Another system will be T Matthews with an S in it, with 2 T's in my last name. Or my phone number is different. My email address is my work email, but my Gmail address or something else. So you have different records. Reconciling all of this to one person is very difficult. And most companies have same person replicated in multiple places. So if you think of like Google Contacts, if you go to Google Contacts, Google Contacts automatically merges contacts together and say, hey, this R. Anderson is the same Ryan Anderson with, Anderson without a first name. It's all the same guy. How? Oh, this is how it is, right? This is the tracking path of it. So using machine learning, they are actually doing that. It's a pretty efficient way of doing that. So it is not done correctly. The identity resolution is not done correctly in the enterprise data space. It's a fairly new. So it's like, okay, that is a unique challenge to solve. And the second is how to standardize all of this into a centralized platform. So the customer data challenge involves the data being clean and organized, so you can really do your AI and ML on top of it. So if you don't have your customer data organized, your algorithms, what your kind of underlying capabilities are going to be very difficult to execute on. So we are a company who cleans up your data and make it organized to execute on, to get value out of. So it's for a data scientist, most of the time they spend on data engineering because they're cleaning up the data. They'll see like 5 records being the same and they are to clean it up. So it is very difficult for marketers and others to do. So that is the challenge that we solve.
No, I love that. And I think what it means for your end customer is that they're getting, very, very poor experiences, poor customer experiences.
Yeah.
How do you treat your customer well if you don't know who they are and you don't have data in order to really target and communicate with them effectively?
That's right. Yeah. Is Ryan on the phone? I was like, okay, Ryan Anderson. I was like, we see 5 of them. Which one are you?
I'm a little piece of all of them.
I'm the third today. It's like I'm the first one yesterday, right? Because you have a Gmail address and you have a Google email, So
No.
you go to your sporting event, so you went as a person, but you're the same guy. So I can guarantee you, some of these folks have you as 3 different people. So.
Oh, that makes sense. And I think you spoke to something that I've kind of learned in this role. Is everyone is so obsessed with, hey, we want to do machine learning, we want to do AI, but you can't do that if you can't do analytics well. And you can't do analytics well if you don't have your data clean.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. And we actually use quite a lot of machine learning to do this identity resolution. Because you can actually, in our software, you can actually use different rules to clean up your data. But we have the capability to, if you give 5 data sources to us, without specifying any rules whatsoever, with labeling, with some assistance on where the data sources are coming from, we'll automatically merge all of your records using machine learning. No human involvement at all. Completely in autopilot. So this is what we call as completely autopilot identity resolution. So this is so interesting because there's nothing to maintain. So you don't have to worry about maintaining rules, fixing last names, first names. We fix it all for you. And we will keep you clean, consistent, governable, but records with data lineage out as an output. Yeah.
And you think about, giving that capability to certain companies, the competitive differentiation that they can create, by connecting to that via API.
That's right. Yeah. So we have one client who's struggling with managing healthcare for a homeless population. And as you know, homeless, they come up with different names, different locations, whatnot. And they would send nurses and assistance programs to different places where those folks really doesn't live there anymore, or is it the same person actually? So they over-allocate their resources. So there's quite a lot of challenges in the business decisions that you're making when your customer data is wrong. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So going back to your experience a bit, I mean, I want to get a bit more insight from you on, pros and cons. You've worked at very large companies, you've founded companies, you've worked at really nimble startups. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, I would love to hear some of the pros and cons of, being at a startup, being at a large company. I think I know a lot of folks who've only experienced one.
Yeah.
Would love to hear your experience in that area.
Yeah, so I think there is if you are in a startup, you wish you were bigger because you have more resources and you have more things, say, for example, if you're a startup and, you don't have, an HR department, it's like, oh, I need an HR department. Or you don't have the marketing team, you don't have the resources, right? So you're always hungry for resources. And if you're in a large company, you always feel that there is too many people here for everything. It's like, why you need all these people in these departments? What are they really doing, right? And we can't actually make any decisions. We can't be fast enough. So, so either place, you're always looking at what is not there. It's like glass half empty, right? So if you look in the other opportunity, wherever you are, what I think of this is like, wherever you are and whatever you are doing, think of this as your last job, and this is your last dance, right? Put out the best output you can possibly do, right? And if you can do that, if this is your last dance, and if it ends up being a championship, that is amazing, right? So if you keep thinking of like, okay, it's going to go downhill, it may not work out, don't put the best effort. That's where people mostly go wrong. Is it doesn't matter you're in a startup or in a small, small to medium-sized startups or early stage, or you're a very mature company, put out your best possible, hardest effort to the organization that you're in. You will get the best output. So you don't have to look back and say, I didn't try hard enough, right? Or I was slacking. I was kind of hanging out with people who really were lazy. So I think that's one of the biggest advice I would say, I've learned from, like, thinking of this, like looking at Skypoint as my last job. This is my last dance. I'm putting everything on the floor on Skypoint. See where it goes. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because after the season, I'm trading you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun watching that documentary. But you spoke to perspective, and I think that's really important. I mean, I kind of always considered myself a startup guy, and I'm working at a company that's very large now.
Yeah.
So it's easy to have that attitude of grass is always greener.
Yeah.
I think for you, it's probably a lot more difficult to hide. When you're in a startup, if you don't do a job, it doesn't get done, and there's nobody else. When you're in a large company,
yeah,
I mean, maybe it's a little easier to hide, but it's
but you'll get caught. It's a matter
last dance.
Yes, the last dance. Having the last dance mentality is always the best mentality. Otherwise you will get caught at some point. It's like somewhere. I know people will laterally move around different organizations, and and they will leave or move around as soon as there is some real deliverable hit. In a large company, they move around to the next department or another team, and they move from that team until they're asked to do something really hard. So you go around like 4 or 5 teams, and then you don't have any team left out. You have to find a new company.
So speak to you have certain folks that maybe you're managing that can be like that. I mean, I want to talk about just innovation. In a startup, I think you have a choice that you innovate or you go out of business.
Yeah.
Large companies, I think it's moving that direction. I mean, we're in a time now with cloud in the last 10 years that all of a sudden you get these more nimble startups with 60, 80 people, and they're competing against Salesforce. They're competing against Adobe, and they're winning.
Yeah.
Because the technology is there and they're just being more efficient. Speak to your experience. I mean, how do you drive innovation in a large company that might be coming from a place that doesn't have innovation built into its DNA?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you have to lead by example. You can go off and tell your team to innovate and say, "Oh, come up, innovate right now. In 3 months, produce something," and give them some challenges and go, and then come back a month later. You have to be in the trenches with them, right? So if you are an innovative leader, you should be able to actually create an infrastructure where it's a lab. And inside that lab, the leader should be in the lab building things with the people in that organization. And if you lead by example, then it will go to the next team. It's like, okay, this is how these guys are doing it. It's a great example. So I have this, thinking of creating the right framework and lead by example and show it, but you're exposing yourselves too, right? If you're not innovative, if you can't build anything new, and if you can't be in the trenches, you're going to get exposed, because people will be looking at, you're not contributing, you're just asking us to do shit. So you have to deliver. Why don't you write some code, or why don't you put some architecture work, or whatever you can do, or test, or bring us pizzas, or whatever. So you have to show that you're really part of the team. And So if you can show that, the team will start executing, right? So the second is you have to get something out sooner than later. So a lot of larger companies, you will end up trying to build a product for years and years and nothing gets out and you miss the market opportunity, right? So you have to get a good enough product out. I think the greatest example of that is Google News. So it's so yes, they are a framework to work on, but put it out there. Oh, it's not going to be perfect. You can get customer feedback. And then you can continuously improve it. But it could be one person, there could be the next person, and then it goes to the next, and it exponentially increases. So I think getting something out quicker. I would say don't put out a crappy product, but something that people can use but has limited feature set, and then continue to improve on it. So larger organizations struggles with a lot of these things. It's like it's not perfect enough. It is not, it doesn't have all the completions of everything done. So for example, for our first release, we couldn't build documentation properly. So one of our challenges was like, okay, we don't have the documentation, which should we release the product or not? So we made a decision to release the product because our customers want to use the product. So, and then our customers, we threw our entire documentation on GitHub, and our customers started editing and making the documentations for us. And our employees, all of our engineers write documentation straight into GitHub. So it's not a technical writer doing stuff. So it is a collaborative effort. So this kind of creating open platforms and open sourcing things. We have open sourced a couple of things from our product too. So throw it on GitHub. You get a lot of valuable feedback. And from major companies, actually, some of our open source projects has gone into where some major companies are contributing to it. So we didn't do anything. We just built something in a couple of weeks, threw it out there to the open source community, and they're contributing. So sometimes it is okay to release some things you thought of your intellectual property to the open world, and the community will make it better than you ever can, and it will benefit you at the very end, right? Because of how you're going to build the solutions. So some of this thinking is harder to do in a larger organization. If you want to open source something in a large company, I was able to approve what we have to do in a startup within 2 days. And it's like, okay, our engineers kind of said, "Oh, Tisson, this should go to GitHub because other developers can get help from this." And I was like, okay, it makes sense. So you don't have any configuration values in there, right? So don't compromise any information. If it's just code, throw it out there. And so I was able to make a decision. But I went through that challenge on one of my first organizations, and it took as months and months to contribute to Linux kernel and Linux community, right? So because they wouldn't open source certain elements of it. It's like, okay, it's intellectual property and it should stay with the main company, right? So those are the challenges from a software standpoint, how organizations move and change and execute. Yeah.
No, that's great feedback, and I think open source is key to our go-to-market and strategy at Google with Google Cloud. Mm-hmm. But I think it's so smart because by releasing that early, you can then be so much more efficient by saying, hey, maybe we don't need documentation about this. People aren't asking for this documentation. Here's what they're asking for, and then you can focus and deliver that to them.
Right, and your competitors is going to take it too. So you have to be ready for it.
And that's the thing, you got to move fast. And I think that creates something that I've learned in this job is that, you have these companies that have been around for decades or, 100 years. At some point, they were incredibly innovative. I mean, that's how they got to where they are.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Back in the day. Yeah.
Yes, right. Last dance. So you spoke to, some of the software challenges, competitive problems. I mean, speak to some of the challenges just generally as a leader. Maybe it involves people, maybe, some of those things.
Yeah, people obviously in a larger company, organizations are fairly complex and sophisticated. So you have to spend time building relationships, understanding someone who has been there for 20 years, their background and their challenges, to someone who is just new and trying to learn about the company. Right. So yeah.
How long? I mean, just genuinely curious on this. When you come in as CTO on day one, how much time do you spend learning versus, I mean, how long do you wait, I guess, just learning and soaking up information before you start taking action, making decisions?
Yeah, great question. I think so. Don't get too excited about showing something to your manager quickly. I think most people who come new to start up a senior leadership job will kind of get excited about, I want to prove myself that I need to show something. So that might typically, create an issue depending on what it is. Sometimes it works, and others it may not, right? So what I learned from is, I think there's a book called First 100 Days or something like that. It's a really good book, and it talks about what is the first 100 days should look like, or first 90 days or something like that. Where what are the approaches you should take? What is the right steps that you to take to make sure you are going in the right direction? And then you're putting the effort, but at the same time take a back seat and observe. When I was at Amazon, the Amazon onboarding lasts for actually half a day and a lunch. That's it. So I was a director. I was a director. So it's not, it's a senior leadership job. And it's like an engineering director in Google, right? Or a VP or a director, you are getting half a day of onboarding and a lunch with your boss, and then you're out on the field, right? So, and you go into meetings, and there's a lot of senior leaders, and there is no hierarchy in majority of the meeting. So you have no idea if someone is an engineer or is this person a VP. You have no idea who you're talking to. So you have to be very, very patient and quiet and learn, right? So you have to listen a lot, and they will probe you with questions of solutions, like, do you have a solution for this? If you do know, provide that information. But if you don't try to solve the problem. Because the guy next door, I've been into situations where in companies like Amazon, right? Or even in my Google interviews, the guy who actually wrote Spanner. So he was one of the guys who interviewed me. I actually didn't know. So, he was asking me questions about file systems and stuff. And I was like, who this guy is, right? And then he was talking about, he built some database, and I was like, okay, maybe some silly database. So then you Google his name, it's like, holy shit. So, right? So you have no idea who you're dealing with in an organization of such magnitude. So dealing with a company like Amazon or Google, it's a different mentality to someone when you go to a traditional organization where people are there and they know the business so well that your technology angles may or may not be the difference maker, right? So you have to really enable them. So it's a unique challenge, and I think you need at least 100 days to figure that out before you take big bold moves. So, yeah.
That makes sense. So day 101, things are getting shaken up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or talk to the customers. I think one thing I saw from TK, who runs Google Cloud, is right. So when he started, I was reading up on what his strategy was. He wanted to listen to the customers. Obviously listen to employees and all that. Just listen for the first few months, or a kind of understanding the ground, and then make the right calls. But those calls need to be, as a senior leader, as a director or vice president or senior VP, you are paid to make some big high-level decisions that has a lot of impact. So so you have to make those big, bold decisions. So you're paid to do that. So for you to make those decisions, you need to understand the background. So because there's a lot of implications towards it. So I think you need that time. Then you have to make some calls, some decisions, at least a couple of decisions in your first year, so that has an impact. Whether it could be a cloud transition, or building a new data analytics platform, or customer data management, or whatever that may be. You need a couple of large decisions, or reorganizing your sales and marketing, whatever that is, right? So you need a couple of those decisions for you to make change in a direction that you want to move the company towards.
It's great advice. And you spoke to Thomas Kurian.
Yeah.
When he first joined as the leader of Google Cloud, that's exactly what he did. He went and talked to all of our largest customers. He went and talked to as many customers as he could. and he asked, why did you choose Google Cloud?
Yeah.
And all of them kind of across the board said the technology. I mean, it's like nothing we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it really started and has kind of made all of our decisions from that point based on our customers, meeting where they're at, helping them, uniquely solve what they're trying to solve in each of their industries.
Mhm.
So want to move a little more to Skypoint Cloud. Again, tell us a little bit more about the product. I guess a good way to do that is, where is the first customer experience? I mean, what's a journey like for a customer of yours?
Yeah.
Any common compelling themes you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always think of a day in the life of one of our customers, right? The roles that we sell our product into is typically a marketer or a data analytics person, or someone who's running customer service. So if you think of a day in the life of a marketer, they are trying to deliver the best experience and best growth strategy. They want to engage their customers. So they need a very simple, easy to use interface. They log into an application. It should seamlessly work and should provide them, these are the 5 things you should do, right? And that's what our platform does. It's like, okay, so these are your loyal customers, and it's always updated and fresh. So you don't have to do any file download and uploads. These are your customers that potentially going to churn in the next 30 days. So these are the 5 things that you do. And here is the potential actions that you can take to, for example, reduce the customer churn or increase engagement. Another thing we always get is how to figure out return on ad spend. A lot of our customers use digital ads, whether it could be Facebook ads, Google ads. So how do we actually get better value out of it? It's like, okay, so performance of an ad is always dependent on who you're targeting. So if you have wrong customer data and then your lookalike targeting is wrong, so we can say that, okay, so your actual audience who clicked on your Google ad, their target demographic is like this, but your loyal customers look like this. So this is the percentage difference. So if you can actually retweak your targeting, you can get better conversion and better return on your ad spend. So these are the challenges they go through. For a data analytics person, for example, theirs is like, are there any new data sources? Should we actually refresh the data every day? Or is it real time? Is it the data quality is there or not? The accuracy, is it, they're looking for higher level reports. And they also don't want to do a lot of manual work where they have to actually maintain things one by one, right? And for a customer service person, they're always looking at keeping, not losing a customer. They actually want to win customers hard. What is the right response that we should give? And are these customers having problems with our product or not? So, and having that information as soon as the call pops up into their customer service application, so we can provide relevant data to typically a Salesforce Service Cloud application or a Microsoft Dynamics application. So we provide real-time data on, hey, here is the 5 problems your customers had, and they were actually on your website like 2 seconds ago, and this is a page they were visiting. And so you have very clear-cut idea of who you're dealing with and what the customer is doing. Then asking a customer a lot of questions like, did you visit our website today? I was like, well, I did. You didn't know? So, or did you email our customer service today? Actually, I did. And then I phone called and I texted you guys, so, oh, I didn't know that. Our systems take a little bit to update, So those are the challenges that, we try to solve and keep it very simple. Yeah.
And there's nothing more frustrating as an end consumer, calling in, telling a robot all about what you want to talk about, and then going through the entire process again. Just such a waste of time. It's frustrating as a customer.
It's frustrating. It should be as simple as like, searching something on Google and hitting, I am feeling lucky, right? So it should have just one result that always should be the right one.
I love it. You spoke to some of the challenges with marketers. There's an old saying I was thinking about that, hey, is your campaign working? I mean, is your marketing effort working? And marketing says, yes, it's working. It's working for half. We just don't know which half.
Right. Yeah. We just don't know which half it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, speak to some, I mean, for your guys' product, I mean, what makes it unique? Don't want you to give away too much of the secret sauce, but what is some of the competitive differentiation?
Yeah, I think the first one is our identity resolution algorithm. It has the rules-based approaches if you want to take that. And also it has a fully machine learning based capability, would automatically help customers clean up their data and organize it all in a complete autopilot. I think that is very unique. Think of it as this way in Google Cloud, where you have the cost optimizer. It'll automatically tell you, it's like, hey, your VM is not utilized for this much, and without you doing anything, it'll automatically resize for you, reduce your cost, and those are machine learning based technologies that is helping making better decisions. So very similar to that, I think our platform has a very unique capability to resolve identities and create customer data management uniquely easy for our customers. I think that is one of our key differentiators. The second is our ability to create that framework. We made it as simple as someone logging into a Google Gmail, right? So you have all of your Google apps in there. So very similar to that, you log into our application using your G Suite account or Azure AD or your login. It's all identities managed, so your organization is set correctly. So there is no password problems or anything. And as soon as you log in, you will get your Google type experience in it. So you will see the roles, your apps. So Skypoint is just another app that you will see in your portfolio of tools. So there is one common dashboard. So it kind of straight fits into an application like Microsoft Office or G Suite, and it kind of feels naturally as an app in your portfolio of things to do. So we made that so easy, so it actually fits into the two major frameworks that is out there for most enterprise customers, Microsoft Office as well as G Suite. So it is easy for them to utilize the product really well. Yeah.
No, that's great. And GCP specifically, I mean, under the hood of your guys' product, I mean, which GCP products are you using? Any favorites? And then what are they enabling you guys to do?
Absolutely. Kubernetes, we love that product, right? So I think it enabled us. So one of the things that I originally mentioned, so my goal was to build an enterprise SaaS factory or framework and build many products under that framework. For us to do that, we have to modularize our application to small, so-called containers or apps. So we have small functions like cloud functions, so which encapsulates a certain business functionality, and it is containerized and deployed into a serverless environment. So container is just a mechanism to encapsulate the application. So that allows us to create a variety of modules that we can configure to create an end product. So now we are doing identity resolution, customer data management. Say tomorrow we are doing product data management. The day after we may be doing something for another industry. So we have a toolkit of different things where we can do, but containerization helps us really to modularize those things. As a SaaS company, we can plug and play those things far more effectively than a monolithic application, right? So that is one. The second is, I think we like the way the simplicity of the UI, the material design. So we actually adopted a lot of the design thinking of how an application should work, how easy and simple it should be. As simple as, whenever people talk about Google search, as simple as, using a Google Maps, so people have those guidelines, and we try to figure out ways to use a product in terms of that design thinking, and it's simple and easy to use. And the third is around BigQuery, a product that is very, marketers really don't know BigQuery is in the back end. They actually see the front end products quite a lot. They see AdWords, they do see Google Analytics and call a lot of these tools, and they are all very familiar with it, but they just don't know BigQuery is the backend really powering a lot of this. And so for us, if we actually make BigQuery as a consumption layer for us, so we push that data to BigQuery, and then we can kind of reconnect that with a lot of applications natively, so without we doing a lot of legwork. So I think from a few things that we learned from Google Cloud. So actually, Google Cloud was the first company who gave us startup funding. But yeah, exactly, yeah. So we kind of looked at it as like, okay, how does Google build products that are remarkably successful and is well engineered, and it's constantly evolving, right? There is a new service that pops up in Google Cloud Console like every month, right? So, and it should all work, and there's a lot of them, right? So how do you put out these products and they all work seamlessly? There's only one bill. So we have a similar thinking of we have one bill. So our customers should be able to use different modules, different tiers, and they should automatically resize themselves if they are not using. So we have different tiers of our products. So if you sign up for a professional tier, but you're not using the capabilities of the professional tier, we automatically push you down and charge you less. So those are the things that we are doing that other companies will keep you on their largest tier because you signed up for it. Even if you don't use it, I'm like, okay, stay there until you have not expired your contract, right? So, but they don't do the right by the customer. So consumption-based pricing models, quite a lot of it, I think, is a lot to learn from Google Cloud that we were able to use, not just technology-wise, but culture as a software company, how to build the products right and put the customer at first.
No, that's great. And when you do that, I mean, you do right by the customer. You have that mentality. I mean, that's how you build customer loyalty and brand loyalty.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And last question related to Skypoint for you guys. I mean, any success stories or customer stories that you can share?
Yeah, for sure. I think as a SaaS startup, first when you talk to people about your company or your product, a lot of them don't understand it. They also don't think there is a need for it. It's like, I thought my customer data is organized. Then we'll ask him, can we take a look at your Salesforce database? How about your phone book, by the way? You just go to your cell phone and look at the contacts, how many redundant phone numbers and names you have, So you think your company is better than that? I should be organizing it. I was like, so you need somebody to organize. How long it's going to take you organizing your contact database? But after a month, you'll input, same guy 4 times anyway. So you can scale this, right? So kind of talking about the pain points and understanding there is a real pain and there is value. And if the pain doesn't exist, we don't want to sell into that company, right? So getting our first customer for us was very difficult because as a startup, we need to get, we have an immature product, but we were able to demonstrate immediate value. It's like, okay, here is a product that works seamlessly. You're not doing anything. It automatically works. And we took their customer database. They thought they had 700,000 customers. We took it down to 250. Like, what? So yeah, these are the real people. Everybody else is a redundant record. Oh, I thought we had this many. It's like, no, here it is, right? So that basically showed them that there is immediate value they're getting out of it, and there is value out of data. So I think that was our first learning point. And then trying to make things work for one customer, and then going from there was kind of the right decisions that we made.
And I'm excited about some of the releases and new customers that you have on the horizon that I've heard a little bit about.
Absolutely.
So last part of the conversation, I want to focus a bit more personal.
Mm-hmm.
For you, just as a leader and somebody who's trying to stay on the cutting edge of technology, what's something that you've changed your opinion about when it comes to technology over the last year or two?
Great question. 2 things. I think one is it is going to be more difficult for startups to survive because the larger players, it's nothing negative about Google Cloud or Amazon or Microsoft or anything. These companies can put out a new product so quickly that has mass connected, applications in already, for a startup to come up with a new product and then try to get traction, right, in a new market. So that is a thinking that I thought, like, okay, startups, they come up with their own thing, they're on their own umbrella. So one thing I've changed in my mindset is around, like, okay, I need to belong to a marketplace of apps. So I am in like Azure Marketplace or Google Marketplace, where for a customer, they're already in that marketplace, and I am another supplier in it, another tool in it. They can easily subscribe into it. So rather than trying to compete against, trying to create your own umbrella of some sort and trying to go to market with it, it's sometimes easier to kind of get traction from a startup standpoint. Otherwise, what will happen is you come up with a new product or idea, you may run into competitive challenges where the customers are asking you is like, I don't want to create another account with you. I want to just use my G Suite account, right, to log in and interact, and I just want it to be another app. So because there are in marketing alone, there are 7,000 SaaS apps. There is way too many of this, and customers are so frustrated. They don't want different interfaces, different way to interact with them. It's like, okay, none of these things look the same. But why don't you guys look at some guidelines and make sure your file menu is in the same place, please? There is nothing innovative about it. Just don't put it on the right side. So your menu should land on the left. So do some of those basics. People think of it as like overthink the user experience and make it too complicated. So if you have these applications have different interfaces, adoption becomes a huge challenge in enterprise. So I think one of the challenges, irrespective of it solves a big problem or not, if the adoption doesn't happen, I feel like adoption is a bigger challenge than the technology itself. So I think Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella put it this way. There is something called tech intensity. He calls it as tech intensity, which is how fast technology can evolve and come forward. And then there is a huge challenge around customer adoption. Irrespective of how great your tech intensity is, if you don't have the similar traction with your customers, your tech intensity doesn't deliver value. So I think the challenge right now in digital transformation is that there is a lot of tech intensity coming out from all the large companies in the startup ecosystem, but the customer adoption is becoming a huge challenge. So even for us, we've been monitoring telemetry of our application, what people are using. Even for an application like ours, they're using like 10 to 20, 30% of our product. Plus everything left unused. So we had to continue to tweak our product in such a way that, okay, reduce the feature set, reduce the footprint, then cranking out more things that nobody uses, right? So I think that is one of the key learnings.
No, that's great. It's better to do a couple things well than a lot of things mediocre.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I think with Google Cloud, I mean, that's what we've heard from our customer base is, hey, you're a couple years behind your competitors, but the products that you do release, I mean, they're Google quality, and they are built really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most difficult part about being a leader?
I think it's the people. I think it always comes down to people making difficult decisions about people, whether it could be hiring, retaining, letting them go or changing their roles, things like that is the most difficult challenge. And I think within the current industry itself, it's extremely competitive environment in terms of hiring. So getting talent is very difficult. So that is, I focus a lot on getting the right talent. And once they are in, you have to put your best effort to retain them and giving them the hardest challenge. And the last thing, post COVID-19, things have changed a lot around home-based working. You can technically hire talent from anywhere, so they don't have to be located in Mountain View or Seattle or somewhere else. It can be in Portland or Vancouver. So the office location idea has changed a lot. I just saw an announcement from Shopify that they're going 100% as a digital company, which means that there is really no technical office you worked at. So they will maintain, and they're going to reconfigure all of their offices to some different styles, but permanently they are changing the organization to be a digital company. So that opens up a huge opportunity for everyone and how we actually work together and collaborate. So I think the next 5-10 years will be evolving to a different style and method of working. And I think it is giving more opportunity for all, right? So for example, if someone wants to stay home because of their family situations or their backgrounds, they can still contribute to a large company or a startup from wherever they are. So they don't have to technically move to the Bay Area. Otherwise, it was a requirement that, thou shalt move to the Bay Area, otherwise you won't be successful, right? So that's a huge change. I think that is going to get more traction. And it is great for cities like Portland. And I think there'll be more opportunities here created from companies outside of the city than probably inside.
And Portland's a great place to live.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Obviously, this is the more I travel and the more places I go, you realize how unique and special this place is.
Yeah.
So what's something that, or what piece of advice do you have for a young engineer or someone earlier in their career who wants to learn more about cloud, more about data and analytics in this field?
Yes, it's a great question. I think a couple of areas. One is, if you are a believer in open source, contributing to a GitHub project or something you want to start on, go out there and go to GitHub, do some searches and see a couple of open source projects that you want to contribute to. Go out there and contribute to it. So you're going to get valuable feedback, and also not in a negative way, so for you to improve on. The other is, straight up going to a company and knocking on their doors and say, hey, I want to learn, how can I contribute? So one thing you can do is sign up for trial accounts on AWS or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure or whatever. Play around with stuff and submit feedback to the product team. So don't go to support and message support. So go to the GitHub repos of a lot of these projects and straight out message them or email them and say, hey, these are the 5 things that you could improve that I found. So if you do that for 3 months, I can guarantee you're going to get some hiring calls from the recruiters, because recruiters are doing different style of recruiting now. They are looking at your open source work. They are looking at your real output somewhere and your contributions than a traditional interview process or your college degrees. And if you can show value that, hey, I can contribute, this is my work, and I actually made 5 improvements on, Google Anthos. And it's like, this is mine. I did this. And I did this pro bono. So the product teams will appreciate that more than anything else, right? And I think that will create the best opportunities. And there's a lot of online learnings and certifications and stuff like that. I think these are all good stuff, but I don't put much value in any certification whatsoever. Yes, you took a test and passed it. Means nothing, really. So you have to show what you did with it. If you show that, that's more valuable. Yeah. So, and unfortunately, a lot of the companies want the badges. It's like, I have 5 Google certified DA, so, which is great. It's a label.
That's great. I've been holding back sports analogies for this entire interview. Yeah. But that certification is kind of like the MVP trophy that Karl Malone won in 1990.
Oh, yeah. You're in the real MVP, right?
That's right. Last dance. So to wrap things up,
yeah,
what's something that folks might not know about you outside of work, outside of Skypoint Cloud, outside of being a CTO?
Oh yeah, I'm a fitness geek. Work out every single day. Love sports. I think to my personal sanity, those 2 things keep me grounded. On like, okay, I have to constantly improve myself, when you're working out and improving yourself health-wise. The second, sports is something so touches in your heart, right? So you're working with a bunch of people so motivated to be the best, and how they execute through the hardest times, through injuries, and people who say negative things about them. So I think those 2 things are equally or more important than my work at the moment. So I take a lot of passion from it to apply that in work and see what works. And most of the time, like team building, a lot of things in team-based sports and fitness really helps you. And the other thing, in a lot of my friends who are in technology industry, you have a desk job, you don't move around much, but with everything that is going on right now in the industry, you got to get yourself healthy. That has to be your priority. And you have to put, you can work out every day if you want to, right? So, and you have to put effort into it, and you can do it online, or you can go to a home gym or fitness center, whatever, right? And then you find a passion that's outside of your work that you're excited about, whether it could be sports or arts or something else, other than technology, so that you have a little more diversity and background. So that's what I do right now. I've been doing it for a while. So yeah.
Well, thanks for making me feel bad. I'm going to go do some. No, and good news for both of us. The MBA is back June 1st.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, last thing for you, if I'd like to learn more about Skypoint Cloud, where should I get started?
Yeah, skypointcloud.com. And if you hit the pricing link, we have a free version available. and you can sign up and use it. It's free. It's like a free account on Google Cloud, so you can hammer it out and let us know what do you think. We love your feedback. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Tisson, thanks again for joining. I'm excited to air this episode, and again, appreciate you being on.
No problem. Thank you so much.